Friends, welcome back to another episode of the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my immortal, vampire, zombie, sword, gun guy and co-host.
All true. It's Alex Dandino.
All right, a little business before we get started. Guys, we're officially on Patreon. You can actually thank every episode this month to that Patreon. You can find us patreon.com/Film Alchemist. You can find that link on all of our socials. It has been awesome so far. We cannot thank those of you who have contributed enough. Guys, for as little as $1, you can get in, join us in some Discord action, some Zoom.
A lot of fun.
For a little bit more than that, you can begin to pick your own episodes. Discount on merchandise. There's so many awesome things. We're doing watch parties. We're going to be doing commentaries. It is a blast. We thank you for those of you who've done it. We ask that you let us earn your money. Go on over to Patreon and see what it's all about. Guys, please take a second. Leave us a rating and review wherever you find the show. A quick 5 stars. A quick couple sentences about why we're so cool. Helps us fight the algorithmic overlords and keep the ascension going. That sounds really cool. Ascension. Like we're a fucking new metal band or something. All right. Go to YouTube. Subscribe to our channel, Film Alchemist. Film Alchemist. You can see video versions of most of our podcasts along with other cool stuff we're working on for you over there. You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on any social media you're on. That's a great place to tell us what you want us to talk about. Be they new, old, guest host, double features, themes. But if you really want to do that, just go to Patreon. Force the hand. We work at your behest on Patreon. Oh, right. That's enough business. So tonight, this entire month has been curated by one of our Highlanders from Patreon. Anthony Tyson, for those of you in the know, is our first Highlander up. He came up with a brilliant curation. So he said the pod goes to early 2000s Japan.
That's right.
He brought 4 absolute bangers. We'll have 2 Patreon exclusives coming with that, too, that are really fun. So tonight we are starting with the movie Versus. I believe from 2000. This was this was a wild time because I remember I had a really big Japanese horror film obsession at the time. This was when The Ring had come over and was breaking huge here. So you had Ringu, Ju-on, The Grudge, One Missed Call, Dark Waters. There's all kinds of awesome horror movie stuff going on. But what was also happening is these really wild, eccentric action movies. There was some weird kind of gore police action films that were happening. It was a really weird time and a really creative and cool time for these movies. So this is a great one. Tonight we're starting with Versus. Alex, would you like to hit me with your opening thoughts on this absolutely batshit film?
Yeah, man. I mean, I loaded up my PS2, threw in my favorite disc, Twisted
Metal. This was
Metal.
back when I could eat Sweet Tarts the whole time I watched films before diabetes laid me low.
Just chow down on chewy Sweet Tarts and sat back.
They were
Shock
Tarts,
relaxed.
Really. That's how you knew you were.
You were a Shock Tarts guy. Shock Tarts were very
Shock
good.
Tarts, and then you wash it down with a Surge Cola. That's how you knew you were a man, a manly man.
I was more of a Mountain Dew co-red myself.
A coward. That's what we called them, cowards.
I'll tell you what you didn't call me. Any of these characters, because wow, this Versus is really fascinating. I'm not going to lie. This movie is, in my opinion, the spirit of filmmaking.
Yes.
And I think that's probably the best way to put it, because again, I could start listing off the things that were in this movie, and for those of you who have not watched it, why are you listening to the pod? But also, like, you wouldn't believe me if I told you.
Never stop listening.
But, like, you wouldn't believe me if I told you the things that were combined into this movie to make this movie. And there's nothing more persevering about this movie than the fact that it just blatantly exists. And, like,
yes,
for our enjoyment. And we're all the better for it. I have to state, like, this movie is uproariously entertaining. Like, there's not a moment to spare.
I couldn't believe it because I was watching and I was like, what in the fuck is this film? it's insanely high energy, aggressively in your face kind of filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
We start again. I'm with you. By the end of the film, I'm not sure that I knew one character's name. There's this really aggressive scene, right? So it starts with these. It's kind of an old timey samurai fight, right? The very first thing we see is a blood-soaked lens and a body being cut in half by a sword, and you're like, "Oh, we're going for it," right? The movie starts so aggressive and so fast, and I'm watching. I was like, "What the fuck is this movie?"
Yep.
And I thought it was just another Japanese studio flick. I went to Google to look it up. I was like, "What is the budget on this thing?" It is listed, and I don't know how that's possible. This movie is listed at $10,000 for budget. For context, that is approximately 1/3 of what Kevin Smith spent to make Clerks. And what I love about this film is it has vampires, zombies, sword fighting, guns, blood, guts, gore, time travel, and a futuristic model.
Futuristic ending, Yakuza's, like, it has
everything. Literally everything.
Whatever you can think of is in this movie.
That's what I mean, though, right? So for
clairvoyance.
$10,000, yeah, all kinds of weird frogmen. But this is what I mean. So for $10,000, they flat out blatantly refuse to bring down any of the concepts or ideas of this film. And what they said, what this movie reminded me of, right, is this is that David McKee thing, right? An audience really only remembers the like 2 to 3 big scenes, the big moments, right? They don't care about motivations, this and that. I think you could argue pretty well that until over an hour into the film, we have no idea what the narrative of this is. And then we stop and do two characters lay out the entire backstory and plot.
Yes.
But it doesn't matter, because what this reminded me of is me and my friends like, here's an idea. We should go fucking shoot this. When we were in high school, and we used to shoot on a VHS loader.
Yep.
Right?
Same.
And so we would just run in the woods and be like, wouldn't this be fucking cool? And when you're out there like, oh, what if I tried this? This movie, it eschews a lot of the filmmaking narrative concepts, right? Of we need streamline this and this. And what it says is every fucking scene, we're going to go, damn, wouldn't that be cool? And they always, whether the style is bombastic and almost coarse at times, they always come back to, fuck, that's cool.
Yeah. I think that is probably the prevailing sentiment throughout the movie is just, fuck, that's cool. Like, yeah, it is like
constantly.
It is like, and I mean, honestly, it feels that way the way it's shot. It feels that way the way it's put together. Just in general, is like that. So the like first scene they have with like the Yakuzas versus the prisoner, who I'm not gonna list off the numbers that he is, because that's how he's listed in the credits, as like prisoner. I'll do it once. Prisoner KSC2-303. I'm never gonna say that again. By the way. So the prisoner guy. The first time he happens upon the Yakuza's, they're like tossing that lady. They're going to basically murder that lady who ends up being a clairvoyant, whatever. Again, throwing it at the wall.
Kind of. By the end, she doesn't see the future as she should.
Right. No shit.
She's a little Sarah Connor. The future's not written.
Yeah, she's a really shitty Sarah Connor. But like, there's
she can't do any pull-ups.
But that scene feels like the scene to me feels like it's one of those things where, yeah, you're like with 4 of your friends and you're sitting there and like, wouldn't it be cool if we just had like guns and we were just like doing this crazy standoff? That is cool. Pick up the camera. Let's fucking do this. And that's exactly how it feels the whole time.
Well, that opening scene is really funny, right? Because we've just seen this kind of like traditional samurai moment, right?
Right, yeah.
But again, it has zombies who have swords and other things. It's really weird. They do the cool, like, he strikes everyone and then he hits his blade and everyone falls.
Everyone falls, yeah.
And I love that beat, because that's always when you know a movie's like, this is a fun thing. This is not realistic, guttural sword warfare, right? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. It's really fucking fun. But that opening scene you're talking about is so weird, because there's prisoners. One of them still has a severed hand attached. These guys pull up and they're like, hey, we're supposed to pick you up. Oh, there's a girl in the car. No one knows why anything's happening. And it is so aggressively shot. Weird close-ups. We're just changing. We're jump cutting. None of it makes any sense. There's no flow or rhythm. And it's this awkward group of men just doing this horrifying dick measuring contest, right? About how tough they are and how cool they are.
Yes.
And it's really weird too, because this movie has awesome music, except for this scene, where I described it in my notes as it is a mix of Australian Seinfeld techno. And I have no idea. It's like a didgeridoo, and it's like, and I was like, what is happening? But there's a scene when they're fighting, and then all of a sudden he grabs the girl and he shoots a guy with his gun, right? It's really cool.
Right.
And the guy in green, right, who's giving off Japanese Judd Nelson vibes to me, right? Like a Japanese Judd Nelson playing Japanese Harvey Dent.
I remember texting you and being like, what is this guy?
Yeah, and he just smiles and saunters over, and then they're all posing. You're like, fuck, yeah, we're in. We're fucking in. Yeah. And then it's literally just off to the races because the guy reincarnates. So let's talk about some of the rules of the lore that we learn in this film. So,
good lore. You first off, let's you're proposing there are rules to this.
I bet there are if I had a legal pad in time. Because we start off, it has an opening, like, credits reading assignment, which I love. There are 666 portals that lead to the other side of the world. I would assume it led to another dimension.
Oh, I thought it was just the other side to to the devil place.
Other worlds, yeah. So this is the 444th. That's it, right? And this is the Resurrection Forest. But there are these people who are immortals who are locked in here, right? So when you get killed here, you are resurrected as a somewhat cognizant zombie who definitely has super strength.
Yes.
Who 100% is immune to headshots, like basic headshots.
It seems.
Because the first guy, they headshot him and he just keeps going. They have to waste him with tons of bullets eventually.
Right.
So they can be brought down. Later we see they can fly. They can use guns. They can use swords. They could become a froggish, impish fighting thing. And this gets back to I like the idea that they're just like, yeah, whatever, throw it in. Because I couldn't tell, are these, because later there's another one too where he gives the gift, right? He's like, I'll give you the gifts of life after life. And he bites her. I'm like, fuck, now they're vampires. Like the ending battle is very Twilight. So I don't fully ever understand what's happening in this forest. What did you make of this zombie outbreak?
I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't understand what was happening for the first hour of the movie. Like, I was just like, I guess I'm just on the ride. Like, it's like sort of showing up.
That's a great way to put it. You're just on the ride.
It's for those of you who, if you grew up in northeastern Ohio around this time, actually, you might have gone to Geauga Lake or turned into Six Flags. There was a ride there. One of the roller coasters was called the Mind Eraser. It went, now, this is all it did, okay? It did 2 loops, and then you had to do them backwards. That was it. I had no idea what it was called, the Mind Eraser. I thought it was the stupidest name ever. But sort of felt like the Mind Eraser. I was like, cool. Like, I know what we're doing, but I'm just on the ride. Like, this is great. I'm here. I'm here for it. And that is what Versus does better than any other movie that you could even conceive of like this. Is it takes everything you ever wanted to throw at the wall, takes it down off the wall, and like scrapes it into this like bucket, and then douses you in it. And that is the first hour of this movie is like, rules or no rules. Like, yeah, like everything's available to you. It's like this weird Ready Player One of Japanese cinema almost.
That's a great way to put it.
It's what do you need? I don't know. I gotta be a flying zombie. There it is. Go for it. What do you need? I don't know. I need a gun and a katana. All right, it's yours. Go for it. Like, there's just nonstop. What do you need moments, and like that's the plot point you need to get to your next scene. That's it, and it works really well. It shouldn't, and it works really well.
Well, there's this really fun card game that me and my friends play sometimes during board game nights called Smash Up, right?
Right.
Where you pick 2 random decks, right? Whether you're a wizard, a zombie, a ninja, a dinosaur, a robot. And I was like, that's what this movie feels like. We need samurai and yakuza and zombie and vampire. But what is what I like is this thing is somewhat commonplace now, right? This kind of a project we see all the time on YouTube or this and that. Right? Oh, dark, gritty Power Rangers, right? My kid loves to watch Batman versus Darth Vader, right? Like what? And there are these kind of fan movies that are so well produced and so well made, and they get out to big audiences. At this time, before the internet had really become as massive as it is, this was a bit of a novelty to see someone, because a lot of guys who go out and make a movie, especially for 10 grand or this and that,
right?
You would get these just guys in a woods chit-chatting movies, right? Like indie dramas where it's like, yeah, we're just here. We're in this one place doing a thing. We're in a house. It's
very
weed
popular
night.
American indie dramas.
Yeah,
yes.
And this movie is that movie, but like, hey, we're giving you all the fun stuff, right? Because when I watched this, it was obviously shades of Evil Dead. There were shades of early Peter Jackson to me. There were, there's a bit of a Highlander vibe by the end that you really love.
Oddly enough, that is
which
one
was
of the
titillating me.
Evil Dead and Highlander are two of the movies that the director said, I want to pay homage to these movies particularly.
That's amazing, because I had an idea by the end. I was like, this could absolutely be a low-key Highlander entry.
I mean, when he cut his head off at the end, I was like, there is some heavy Highlander going on here.
Yeah, and when he wakes up, he's like, after the resurrection blood. That's very much like when Connor is reawoken, his body sees himself flowing. Anywho, right? And I think that's, I like that a lot, though, right? Because there is this giddy joy of these characters. So we get to our first big zombie fight, right?
Right.
And these zombies wake up, and there's just cool shit. Like the zombies, there's little details. Like the zombies have their eyes closed, right? Whether they're rotten or it's just a makeup effect or whatever. But that zombie's still trying to shoot a gun. It's a crazy fun obstacle to throw in. In the amount of people and guns and fighting that they manage to corral, this is not just a, hey, we need a 90-minute film.
Yeah.
I'm going to just put a camera on two guys. I remember the first time my mom spanked my ass. You know, it was just depression and erections. It's really shaded the rest of my life, right? Like that kind of a thing. And there is an absolute joy. I mean, I probably wrote that in college. I think we all wrote a version of that. But there is a joy to the kind of ballet, right? Where it's so overly choreographed and so silly. But like, I love the scene when he kicks a guy's head off, or a guy throws a knife, he catches a knife, throws it at another guy's head, kicks that head bash. It's that the camera is moving as if it is tied to a pinball in a pinball machine.
Yeah.
And everything it stops on lights up and flips us to the next thing.
Yeah.
There's a dynamic, joyous choreography to this that puts it above just that, hey, we're just fanboys in the woods kind of a movie.
I think that's what's really great about this is there is still the level of care taken by someone who is a professional filmmaker. And I think that's what sets the movie apart. It's like, I didn't know this. I was looking up the director afterwards. Like, I didn't know he directed on The Midnight Meat Train, which I think is awesome.
You know what's funny? When you said that, I was kind of imagining some of the tricks of this coming forward. There's a scene at the start where the butcher, right? Vinnie Jones gets a kill, and the camera moves around in a really bizarre kind of manner.
Right.
And I was like, I want to rewatch it now because I'm like, I feel like it would have this vibe.
It's true. Now I need to rewatch
There's some really
Midnight
strange
Meat
moments. There's also blood splattering on the camera.
Right.
So it's fun to see, because I love Midnight Meat Train. I actually think that's a really cool movie.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see that this was like his little love letter. Like, please let me in. I love this shit so much.
I really like
That's
that
awesome.
this movie does feel like that knock knock kind of thing. And I like that a lot about the spirit of everything going on. Because, like, if you look at it from, like, an overtly cynical perspective, you would watch this movie and be like, well, that was 2 hours wasted. Nothing happened in the movie. I'm like, untrue. Literally everything happened.
I was going to say, nothing stops happening except for when the two main characters have the plot discussion for 10 minutes.
Right. And, like, that was... And it's weird because... Isn't it... Because there's your, like, my mom spanked my ass moment. Because you're just like... There's your scene from that movie that would be made for $10,000, and instead that was like a $50 scene, and the rest of it is off to the races. Yeah. I respect the hell out of a movie like that, and I really love that it is just whatever you need, man. Whatever you got cooking in that brain of yours, It's on camera. It's going on camera. It's going on screen, and it's going to make some form of impact. There's things you just pick, like that guy, the Judd Nelson guy. I could not take my eyes off of him.
Judd Nelson guy. I love that we just don't know character names, so we're just fucking.
I don't know who he is. He had a green shirt.
There was one guy I called Vampiric Riddler ? Because he had the Jim Carrey at the end of Riddler.
There's one guy. The one guy I called Static X. He had the spiky hair and the chin beard.
Yeah. No. Drop shot.
Yeah.
No.
I just but like Judd Nelson was so good.
So good.
Because I was drawn in by he just like every time he was holding a gun, whenever he held a gun, the other hand was like caressing the air.
Everything.
And I couldn't stop. I was like, this
everything is ballet. And what is great about Japanese Judd Nelson is that he knows exactly what the fuck this movie is.
Yes.
And he knows that because things are going to be a little sparse at times, he can fucking go for it. And he absolutely does. This is a strange movie too, because they just give us I'm telling you, this movie, of all the movies we've ever covered, the closest analog I could say to this movie is something like Bad Taste.
Yeah.
Right? Bad Taste has a kind of a better elevator pitch, right? Which is, we are fast food for space truckers.
Right.
But if you watch something like Bad Taste, it's very much just, we got to run around, oh, there's a brain gag. Oh, there's, these costumes and guns and the house of spaceship, chainsaw. It's blood and gut. I mean, that vibe, though, right?
Right.
Of, God damn, I just love movie making, and I'm going to use every fucking trick I can. And so we do that essentially for the first hour of the movie. Then all of a sudden, the boss,
the man,
quote unquote, the man shows up. We don't know why he hired these guys that are going to kill it. Blah, blah, blah. Anywho. Well, now there's 3 ladies that show up. Well, 2 ladies and the Riddler show up, and they fucking jump the man after they've killed their teammate. And we're like, oh, fuck, they killed him. They're going fully crazy. I get this movie. Okay, this is our narrative route. That guy just stands up and starts fucking throat punching, and you're like, okay, now they're vampires.
Right.
Then we cut to the lady begins to lay out, the lady in white begins to lay out this kind of possible looming narrative, right? That it is your destiny. He's like, who is this? Also, there's a thing we got to address real quick. This guy is a really bad hero, right? Which the end really hammers home, but we kind of think he's going to be our anti-hero. We're going to like him by the end, right? This man who's cruelly abused by fate. Every time he's about to fight, he just reaches over and knocks out that girl.
All the time. Okay.
Like 5 times, I feel like.
I'm so glad you said that, because I could not surmise. I'm like, is this supposed to be like a gentlemanly thing? Like, I do not fight in front of women.
Well, I think it's like, if you're knocked out, I can go fully do karate kicks. And it's like, couldn't she do better if she could run and hide and avoid bullets on her
No, she
own?
needs to be, apparently she needs to be knocked out. It's, again,
a lot.
It's one of those things you're like, there it is. Like, there's also violence against women in this movie, so...
As if
really
this movie could not be more like a teenage boy, right? Run amok. Yeah. That is one of those things you're like, that. But then they do give her a moment she has some powers, right? She's the one who fucks up the Riddler. She catches his foot and puts they put him in the lake. But she lays out this thing, because this is the weird part. So a movie like this that's like, we got nothing, we're just going for it. We'll do awesome effects, awesome guns, awesome swords. The movie has this really much better than you would think hidden narrative in the middle, right? So take out the fucking portals, take out the castle in the woods and the 2 keys, whatever the fuck that was, because they're like, the key's her blood. I'm like, well, she's spilling blood everywhere. No, that doesn't work. Keys it's his blood. I'm like, all right, well, they're dueling. There's fucking blood everywhere. Why is this not working?
Everywhere?
So much blood, right? So take all that shit out, right? What this movie really is a fucking Twilight Zone narrative, where it is these people trapped in this never-ending time loop. She says you 2 are destined to fight. He can't remember. By the time he remembers that he had to kill her in the past life. And he was so fucking fraught with grief, right, that he runs in and gets sliced up and he gets killed.
Right.
And now he realized he might have to do that again. He's the man who keeps saying, I don't like being imprisoned. I like to follow my own rules. I don't like you boss me around. Boom, he gets killed. She fucking resurrects him without asking, right? He cannot escape this fight. The guy who's waited 500 years, the man, cannot escape this fight. She can't escape this fight, right? They are fated. They are drunk. So we get this. You were a bad man. You were in life imprisonment for disturbing crimes, right?
Right.
So we get the hint that there's all this weird shit going on. But they pull this twist that fucking blew my mind, which is we travel back in time to when he killed her the first time.
Right.
Who's there? The Riddler, Japanese Judd Nelson, the entire crew. So not only are these three locked in this fucking never-ending eternal battle for the 444th portal. So apparently this movie happens 666 times around the world constantly, which is crazy to think. This could be happening at your local town park with squirrels. You never know. But not only that, but all these side characters we've been following, right? They're also tied to this thing. Why does he hire them? Why do they feel like they're not really there doing the job they want to do? When the man shows up the first time and tells Japanese Judd Nelson, scumbags like you should be dead. Why is he fucking so aggressively going after the man he just hired? Because they've been fighting this fight for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And that these people lost in this never-ending battle of fate becomes fascinating, right? So there is this weird thing that then my brain, which has been starving, you watch this movie and your brain's like, feed me, right? Like, hit me, like The Fly.
Yeah.
Help me. That's what your brain is saying. They just fucking drop out of nowhere in the middle of this fucking action bonanza.
Yeah. After you've just been inundated with imagery, then they drop
this
in
really
this very
fucking cool,
cool Highlander-y narrative about time loops and destiny and all this other stuff that, again, should not work. Like,
unlike Highlander, these people are not just chosen for this. That's what Highlander, right? Connor McLeod is just chosen at the moment of his death, or a little before, actually. That's neither here nor there. What happens with these people is when they die, they don't get absorbed. They get reborn into the same fucking cast.
Right. I mean,
it's fucking crazy. That's really cool.
Yes. Like, it works really well. Like, I don't know why, because this movie's complete batshit for like an hour of just like imagery. But yes, it works really well. And I think it is because, like what you're talking about, your brain is just like, there's got to be something. There has to be some form of through line to carry me through another hour of this. Because, like, I'll be honest, the hour mark is a great example of like, I'm like, there's an hour of this movie left. How much more story could we possibly be? And then, it drops.
See, I had the opposite. I'm like, we haven't wasted any story yet. We must have a shitload to go.
Yeah, we haven't wasted any story because I don't think the movie started. I'm like, I think we're just watching the preamble.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
Like, it was like an hour into the movie. I'm like, oh my God. I'll say that, like, it moves so fast. I literally was like, oh my God, it's an hour. I thought it had only been like maybe 15 minutes.
Well, they do a brief moment at the start, right? So he helps the girl escape. You're like, all right, he's making a choice to be kind of noble, but then he's like, fuck you, don't touch me. I'm an anti-hero. I'm too cool for school.
Right.
There's this scene where he kind of briefly passes out, right? He's escaped whatever happened, right? She goes to touch him, right? And it's shot in this very soft, focusy, fantasy meet cute moment. He grabs her hand, but then he looks and he opens his hand and he reaches for her. And you're like, oh, shit. He wants to be loving, but on his terms. Reaches past her and grabs the pin to unlock himself. I was like, oh, so they're setting us up for this kind of Han and Leia shit. And then we just go back to the fucking madhouse, right? Or this is when the madhouse starts at the fucking... Yeah, like when the Riddler fights him at the river, he just goes, dude. He drops down like that dude from Big Trouble in Little China. He drops down on just like a fucking line.
Yeah.
And we're... Huh? And then she all of a sudden has power. So, but there's this little moment you're like, oh, maybe there's a story. But no, not really. And this is the thing. So once we get to this cool kind of like faded whatever, right? It's really fucking cool. We keep thinking that there's going to be this heroic moment.
Right.
And him, he has to, because she says when she's tied up, right? I love the fact that he's like screaming and doing this summoning ritual. I've waited 500 years, open the gates. He's like, nothing happened. What the fuck? I love the idea that they have these rituals and things in their mind. And it's like, no, that's just for you. That's more torture from gods. The gods, right? It's like, you're going to keep thinking this is a thing, but really you're just getting reborn into this fucking cycle over and over.
It's just another cycle, yeah.
Yeah, and so then he's like, but I did plan this, and I got you, and now you've got the blood, blah, blah, blah. But when they're about to fight, right, and he now is like the super red-eyed version.
Right.
And she said, because he shows up like a fucking
Is he vampire?
boss.
Is he both, or is he a vampire and a zombie?
I mean, technically both are undead. This one plays a little this feels like a vampire fight. This feels like a vampire hunter.
Yeah, that's because that's how I've read it. It was vampires.
Yeah, maybe they're different than the minions that keep waking up.
Right.
But he comes back, with this fucking giant sword like he's Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, this awesome gun. And it's just fucking cool. But there's this moment when she's talking to him. She's still tied up to the tree, and the guy's coming back, and you've used your blood. And they start talking. She's like, yeah, he's different this time. You might lose. The guy's like, maybe. I thought that was kind of a very still moment that actually had a lot of impact. This guy all of a sudden being like, oh, fuck, what if I do get killed?
I mean, for me, I think any still moment in this movie is going to have impact because it just goes. Like,
but it's because they're not doing the Indie 90 thing where it's like, this emotionally fraught thing where every scene is like them telling you a thing.
But that's not what this movie is. Like,
how do they still get that with essentially no story going on until the very end? They give you a little drip.
I mean, I think it's because it's odd to say this, but it's because I'm actually invested in these characters as they move throughout this bizarre world they're in. Like, that to me is probably the most prevalent and important thing that makes this movie work is if I didn't give a shit about any of these people, I'll be honest, I probably would have just turned it off. But like this, I care. Like I care about what happens, and I care once we get past that part where they basically explain what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I care even like at first it's like I care because I want to see what these actors are going to do because it's hilarious, and then I start caring because I'm like, oh, I want to see like. Where's this leading? Are we going to move on to the 445th portal? Like, what's happening to the next?
The 444th chamber. Yeah, it's crazy, too, because our main character is an anti-hero who keeps knocking out the leading lady.
Continuously.
But he reminds us, he's like, they're bastards, I'm not. I got a heart. And you think, oh, he's just abused by fate. He's going to come around. He's going to be good. No. And there is a surprisingly awesome moment, right? So after Highlander's the bad guy and fucking wins and kicks his ass, there's this really cool moment where I'm like, of course there's a motorcycle. He's already, because he keeps essentially finding loot crates in the middle of the battle where he's like, sick shades, sick duster, right? He has all these awesome gear he just finds.
Dude, the duster suit up's the best.
Yeah, and at the end I was like, oh, of course there's a fucking motorcycle. Why not? That's cool as hell.
Yeah.
And when he gets on, right, she has this moment where she kind of is holding him tight. And, it's really kind of a lovely moment because she says, I believe, if you leave this forest, you could die. He just goes, maybe. Like, we'll have to see. And when he says that, he has this fucking chuckle and a smile. Yeah. For a character who's essentially been playing this caricature of this fucking super badass, stoic, rock hard, impenetrable guy. He has this little fucking chuckle and a smile. Like now... I don't like being in prison somewhere. I think it's his phrasing. Now he is free to not be the bad guy of the story, the guy that already gets killed. Right. Life is in front of him. Granted, that does not end up being the story. But that's a really nice little moment. And I was honestly, that's the thing that shocked me. Because after an hour of the movie, you're like, I get it. They knew a guy who could do really good effects. They really put the time in to choreograph this, right?
Well, you know, that was the main actor.
Yeah. You knew all of this was coming, right? You're like, I know those tricks. I was surprised, considering it felt like they just said, fuck narrative, let's just have a greatest hits reel.
Right.
They still fucking landed emotional beats. I honestly couldn't believe it at the end of the movie.
It was pretty incredible. I will say, like, my favorite of the loot crate beats was definitely the duster. Because it, like, for 5 seconds and turns into this, like, Tennessee Williams play where she's like, oh. And he, like... flicks the collar. I'm like, dude, this movie. That was when I was like, because that was when
I guess she was the hot tin roof. Am I right?
Absolutely.
I like the scene when he gets
so
the
good.
Riddler sunglasses, and he's like, and she's like,
that's also really good
because there's like a push in on, oh, isn't he cool? He looks at her, she shakes her head, and the camera pulls back with like a and he takes him off. I thought that was fucking great, man. Okay. We got to talk about the ending, because the ending, honestly, because the movie ends on that awesome little motorcycle beat, and you're like, wow, what a good, we're zooming through the tunnel, we hit the light, we'll fade to black, right? That's a pretty traditional ending for a movie. All of a sudden, we're just in a miniature Terminator wrecked apocalypse.
Yeah, okay. Did you get Terminator vibes? Because I was just like, this feels...
Well, yes, like Be Kind, Rewind Terminator vibes. But you're watching this little model city, and it's like 99 years later. The whole fucking gang is back. She's there. Now, all of a sudden, the man is reborn as the fucking outcasted hero role.
Yep.
Now, this is a little weird mythology-wise, because she says, I should have chosen your side.
With you. Yeah.
I love his line when he's like, welcome back, brother. And he says something, he's like, there's nothing left to destroy.
I love that. That like almost...
fucking awesome.
That reminded me of like One Punch Man stuff, like where One Punch Man's like so depressed that he can't. That was exactly I'm like, is this the vibe we're going for? Because that's all I felt.
And it's just all the gang is still there, but now they're in different get-ups. So it's these people recast, right? As if, life just fucking throws them like, the fortune bones, and they just keep getting shuffled, and it's pitiful. And you see him with the hero lighting, the kind of the smoke rolling past him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fucking cool, and it just ends on them, their swords hit, versus. It's cool, but it adds this extra level of fucking misery to this. And then the girl starts saying, did I do it wrong? Was he the portal to the 444th portal? When he says, I don't like to be a prisoner, is that him saying, I don't like to be a prisoner to any role, let alone the good guy? He didn't want to get caught. The forest could be another jail, and he wanted to get out and wreak havoc. What were his disturbing crimes? It's insane that they just added this tag that's so unnecessary. But again, it showed, because they did the samurai, they did the modern Yakuza zombie, and they're like, oh, we got some sci-fi too.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, again, because it's cool and they love it, it adds this whole other realm of things that we have to contemplate.
Yes.
Which fucking blew my... By the end of this movie, I was literally... I was so excited on my couch. Because I was just like, these motherfuckers are doing
blows up and they get the title card, I was like, give me another one of these fucking movies right now. Yeah. Don't even play around. I need this.
Yes, because you said it best, right? This movie is the spirit of cinema. Every fucking guy like us that liked Kevin Smith, or we found that movie, right, that made us want to make movies. You can't be that guy who has dreams of making a movie, a story, selling a book, whatever, see this movie and not get a little romantic about it.
Right.
And at the end, when they just said we're doing miniatures in sci-fi and it's this awesome fucking Shakespearean tragedy now, it was just fucking cool, man. It was fucking cool. And I cheered because I'm like, you guys are showing us another trick that you absolutely didn't need. That movie had a beautiful ending if it just fades to black.
It's the ending it's the ending, and then it's the ending that cut the camera and they're like, I just thought of this. How cool would it be if it's like 99 years in the future? Like, oh, dude, let's shoot that right now.
They just go, bro!
Yeah. I mean, like, to me, Versus for me is this like movie from like the mind of a 14-year-old jerking off to the Matrix while reading Akira.
Me.
Yeah, but like, and then like reading like Akira and Dark Horse comics like nonstop. And like that, but like it, by the way, that's okay. Like it's everything you want. Did you think you were going to watch this movie? It never strays from the point of the point of making the movie is to make it. Like, I love that is the vibe I get the entire time. It's not, man, we really got to hammer home the point of loneliness in the 21st century by talking. No, it's about what you can do with 10 grand in your pocket, man. Like, that is, if there's nothing more inspiring than that, I don't know.
A third of Clerks is this.
Third of Clerks.
And again, it's digital versus film, whatever. But what is really
No, that was shot on film.
Was it really?
It was shot on film.
Holy shit. Okay, that blows my... Because I just was like, oh, it's this early 2000 digitally look.
No.
Before we had like amazing digital cameras. Good Lord, that's fucking tripping
I
me
looked
out.
this up. He actually, so he raised a bunch of money. So it was supposed to take 3 weeks. It ended up taking 7 months because of financial issues and stuff like that. And they could have, they were originally going to make this a short film. And it was supposed to be the sequel
This
to
was
his other
a
short
sequel to a short. Yeah, I read
called
that
Down
too.
to Hell. And Versus was supposed to be shot low budget with video, but they decided to shoot on film.
So
And
that
that's
had
why
to be almost all that money.
that has to be like a majority of the money. So like think about stretching a dollar like that. You're shooting on film and then you have all those special effects.
How the fuck is this pot? That's crazy.
It's amazing.
But
It's amazing.
And apparently there's a lot of extra footage. There's a lot of different cuts.
There's 3 different cuts to this movie.
Yeah, how the
I don't know what
fuck
cut
is
we
that
watched.
But that's what I mean. That is fucking stick-to-itiveness, right? The man says that when the girl's tied up.
Yeah.
And he might lose. He's like, well, you got to work hard for what you
Just
want,
thinking
right?
that. I was
And
just
I was
thinking
like,
about that.
that
scene.
is the filmmaker inserting himself,
Right
right? Right in that line. It's really fucking cool, man. And the movie has these fucking weird, like the 2 Keystone Cops that are just in the movie, and we keep detouring like, oh, we're going back to see who they escaped from. This is going to be huge. This is going to matter. Just to pay off in a fucking double explosion with a gun?
Yeah,
It's like the Keystone FBI sniffer guy, right? And then Stumpy, who stabs people with his now missing hand bone. And I was just like, that's the shit that you get to do in this movie, right? Because they saw that, right? And any logical person would be like, that shit has 0 value to the movie. There is no reason for those 2 to be in there.
right.
But they said, you know what? I think those characters are kind of funny, right? We are essentially just keeping around this Abbott and Costello bit that's going to pay off, I guess. And they just have them in there for this fucking 3-4 scenes that stops what we're doing over here, so we can follow these 2 guys. And the guy takes this thing of, your bullets are too slow. They'll never get me. I'm 500 times faster than Mike Tyson. Oh, shit. And I was like, that is such a rough edge.
Yeah.
Right? This is not a well-oiled machine by any stretch of the imagination. And to me, when I see those things, right, when I see that, oh, you have a vestigial tail, like, weird.
Yeah.
Right? You have those leftover appendages. You, like, ate your twin in the womb and its teeth are in your fucking love handle.
Right.
I think that's charming, and I love that shit.
There's a weird thing. The last fight right before they hop on the motorcycle, before we jump to the future, last fight when he kicks the man's head off, and they hang on that shot. I couldn't tell if that was the sound effect of like the blood spurting.
Oh, that's when we learned that he had acid blood too when he was.
Oh
in
yeah,
that
that too. Sorry. Wow. Yeah, man. There's just so
many
much
powers.
But yeah, like when they kick his head off, his like head is sitting there on the ground, and I was just like, is that the sound effect that they chose, or is that the sound of the actual blood spurting from like the apparatus that's making like the blood spurt out? And in the middle of wondering, I was like, I don't think it matters because both of them work. Like it works for me, and like I'm like in his head, he's just bleeding out his mouth, and you can still see the blood spurting. You just hear this, and again, it's just one of those things that goes to the spirit of this movie, which is just like, why not?
Yeah.
Why would that not? Have you ever kicked a man's head off? Do you know what it sounds like?
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean, I worked as a screenplay analyst. We both studied writing a lot, and we do this pod where we break down films. You could make a manifesto of everything this movie does wrong, right?
Right.
You could rip this movie to shreds. You could fucking rip it a new one narratively and this and that. But the way I would teach it if I was a professor is be like, look at these guys. They fucking did it. Right? The best trait of any filmmaker is just you made your fucking film. And not only did they just get a film made, but they really went for it. They really said, these are the things that we like, and this is what lights us up. And we're going for that, man. It doesn't matter that in the middle of the zombie ballet, right, that fucking first major choreographed fight, we're going to do 3 jump cuts just getting closer to one guy's eyeball.
Right.
What does that mean, right? What is the camera telling us? What are we supposed to glean from that move? Every move should be motivated. No, fuck that. It looks cool.
Yeah, that's it.
Fuck you. I just want it to look cooler.
Again.
Okay? And that's what you can take all the fucking rules of filmmaking and all the books and all the academic stuff, and you can fucking shoot it with that giant fucking gun. Because did you get it made? Is there, and this is what we talk about too, right? The biggest sin in movies, besides being boring, is when you feel like the people making the movie were not really emotionally invested, right? And this one, they fucking made the movie they want, and there's passion writ large across the screen. And to me, this would be chapter 1 of any film class I taught is, whether you like this movie or not, this is what you should be striving for right now. This is the fucking first battle you're trying to win.
Agreed. Again, I think the prevailing sentiment of this movie being, fuck, that's cool.
Yeah.
Works on every level. That's it.
It's weird that we would take that as like a criticism sometimes, right? I think sometimes we just forget that, man, fuck, that's cool. That is inspiring something in a person. And that's where you start buying rent in their head.
Yes.
That's it for Versus. This movie, we versed it. This movie won. It was a really good one. This was a great selection and way to start the pod visits early 2000 Japan. We'll be back next time with Gozu. We have to thank Anthony again, Dyson for those of you in the know, for curating this through our Patreon account. If you guys want to get in on the fun, remember, go to our Patreon account, Patreon/Film Alchemist. You can find that link on all our socials. Find us on our socials. Leave ratings and reviews. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Film Alchemist. More than anything, guys, thank you for all you do for us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving us your time. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Alex Dandino. See you 99 years in the future.
I fucking hope not.